Welcome to Psychic Girls Next Door. We are your hosts, Lili
and Shannon Miller. This podcast is for all spirituality enthusiasts and psychics next door to share tools, experiences, and spiritual practices that align with your highest vibrational self.
So in this episode, we will talk about the first chakra.
Ooh.
Oh, what could that be? Where it's located, what it represents, and what it could be associated with in your life from a real life practical standpoint. And I know that chakra the word has been thrown out in so many different ways, and how people work with it. So we just kind of want to give our perspective on it, and how does this influence your life. So basically, chakra is the Sanskrit word for spinning wheel. And the way that I see chakras, so as psychics, people will ask, well, do you see the chakras? Mm-hmm. And I'll say, yes.
Yeah,
I do see chakras. So the first chakra, it's located right at the base of the spine, right? And we have more than one chakra. We have several of them, and some of them like a combination of chakras. But for today, we're just going to be talking about the first chakra.
Yeah.
So just starting off with the chakra itself, how does it look like for us when we are looking at it? So for me, it looks like a kind of like a mini vortex, but just facing forward.
Yeah.
Kind of, that's what it looks to me.
Yeah, when I do readings for people and I look them, I look at their chakras, I'm like, I'm going to open up your first chakra or your fourth chakra, whatever's popping up. I'll see a few of them light up in their space. And it's sometimes it's physically light up. Sometimes it's some spirit guide calling me to look at their chakra, or I'll just see a picture floating above it and be like, oh, I got to look at that. And or a word is popping up depending on what they ask. And so, for the first chakra specifically, when usually it's related to survival information, wealth, health, abundance, a lot of scarcity pictures might pop up, and I'm hearing a very loud ringing in my right ear right now. Love that for me. But the first chakra, it's known as the root chakra. And when you are going through a grounding practice of connecting to the center of the planet and, really feeling grounded in your body. Sometimes you'll connect your grounding cord. Sometimes it's a beautiful tree trunk. Sometimes mine is a straight up elevator cable, that'll hook into the center of the planet. But I'll have to connect that to my first chakra so that I am physically and, soul level rooted into and connected to my grounding cord from that first chakra. And so if you are in a meditation practice or want to start, that is a good first step of coming into your body, connecting to recognizing where your first chakra is, paying attention to it, thinking about where is it in my body. And then you can connect your, imagine a grounding cord going to connecting to the planet, whatever that means for you. But with the first chakra, it's a foundational energy center in the human body, according to many Eastern spiritual and esoteric traditions, including Hinduism and yoga philosophies. It's also as we said, it's located at the base of the spine, so near your tailbone, and then it's basically associated with that survival aspect. So when I was going through our meditation program that we went through, a lot of the pictures of limiting beliefs around money or lack of resources, those were the pictures that kept coming up in my first chakra when I would do my own meditations or get readings from fellow students. But when you were going through the program, what came up for you or what typically comes up for you when you look at your first chakra?
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
It's all about survival.
Yeah.
When looking at the first chakra. And again, the chakras, when you look at it, they open, right? So they can open and they can close. So the way that I look at it, the more open it is, it means that you're especially with the first chakra. If it's wide open, it means like you're basically on survival mode.
You're like collecting information.
Yeah, you're like pretty desperate, you know, whether it be financially or maybe you have a physical illness. Because the first chakra, it's related a lot to the physical body in this planet. So it's like, how do you survive like finances, housing, all of that.
Environment,
like the stability, right? Like your stability here, your structure here in this physical world. So if that is imbalanced, that's how I would say it.
Yeah.
Then, you know, I also look at it like the openness or, you know, the closeness of the chakra, so that I get information about it too. If it's like really close to you, that means that either the person is probably avoiding or feeling isolated in a way, means that they kind of feel like they don't belong somewhere. So there's a lot of information that can come when you're looking at chakras, and also with colors. I see colors also in chakras too. So, and colors, again, there's no like kind of set in stone like definition for colors when it comes to chakras. They all have their own definition depending on who you are reading, you're facilitating the reading. So I might see maybe red, maybe that might mean that the person's like really, there's a lot of anger around their situation, or maybe not. There might be a lot of passion for some people. So it's a very unique, every person has like a unique, you know, quality, I want to say, when it comes to their energy around the first chakra.
Like vitality in general. Yeah.
Or a lack of energy or things like that. But for me, when I started the psychic training, I was basically functioning out of my first chakra. Yeah. Because I was all about the survival. Because I was basically in this scarcity energy where, you know, I don't have enough money. It's challenging to pay my bills. I don't make enough money. And things like all these beliefs and the narrative around that energy.
And then when you think that, then that will be your reality.
Yes, you're creating, you're matching that.
Right. Yeah. You're like, oh, I don't have money, so therefore you won't have enough money.
The universe like, oh, okay, I'm going to then reinforce that for you.
Right. Well, if that's your belief, then you won't have enough money.
Then, you know, we're going to make sure that everything matches that. Yeah. So I was also in basic like survival mode, and it's just becoming more aware of that energy in the root chakra or the first chakra too. That was very imbalanced. And I think it's just bringing awareness
and I think
to that space.
When you aren't paying attention to, or if you are new to this like whole concept of the chakra system and just like tuning in with yourself, I kind of forget what I was like before I started meditating. Like I know what I was like. I was like very different. I feel very different in a good way now that I feel like my eyes are open. Like I can see a lot more. I know a lot more. I feel more confident. I feel more present. And like I feel like a little bit more in control. I mean, control is all a made up concept in my mind, but like I do feel like I have a lot more self-autonomy, that I am connected to myself more, right? Like when you pay attention to tuning in with your body, and then you kind of go up the layers and you go up to the other, then you start paying attention to like the higher chakras. And then I think that's where my awareness has expanded.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's been a beautiful transformational experience for me, like looking from outside. I also think that, when you become aware of your own energy and you know yourself better, then, I mean, you can create anything.
Right. What more can, it only gets better from there.
Yeah. You become more empowered to take actions, to create different things, to try different things and explore different things. So the more, I always tell people, the more you know yourself, the more empowered you become. So if you become more aware of what is happening in your first chakra, and again, also the first chakra, it's not only the energetic that we're talking about, but it also influences your physical body.
Yeah.
So the first chakra, it's also related to, I want to say, the areas of like your digestive, like the lower digestive,
Your
like
legs.
the hips, the legs, like how you also walk your path.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like it's all related in that area.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's very connected because it's survival. So there's a lot of fear,
And
energy.
it's also connected to the adrenal glands too.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're always like, oh my God, fear, that anxiety.
Yeah, yeah.
So you fire up all those hormones. So
Yeah.
your nervous system is all like dysregulated.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to function like that.
Yeah. And even if you think about like the Maslow's like pyramid of like
hierarchical needs.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Like the survival is at the bottom, and then same with the first chakra. It's like the base, the foundation, that layer that you need to have these things in order to even think about anything else, or like, you know, desire anything else. And like the root chakra, so it's essentially responsible for providing a sense of security, stability, feeling of being grounded in this physical realm. And then when it's balanced and open, it like gives you the sense of like being able to free flow, and like it almost gives your body permission to relax in this realm that we're all in. That's personally how I feel when I feel like, when I don't have to think about my resources or the lack of, or, you know, trying to get more, my attention is able to go, it's freed up, and it's able to go somewhere else. And like I said, like kind of moves up the layers of the chakra system. And not that that has to be your personal goal, but for me, when I first started out, I was also thinking of the same thing. Like, I don't have enough money. I don't make enough money. I need to make more money. And it was constantly like, oh, I'm always striving to make more money. And like, almost like it's never enough. And even like after the program, I feel like something shifted pretty recently within the past year. I was constantly striving for higher compensation roles, jumping from role to role to role so that I could get more and more and more. But even with that mindset, I did make a lot of money at you know, I make I'm very grateful for the amount of money that I make now. But there's been bouts of not having a job for a few months between those jobs, or like, you know, I got laid off like 2 years in a row. And like I'm like, okay, well, I've done all this work on myself. Like, why am I still catching myself in moments of like lack? And it's because I had that scarcity mindset. It was like that scarcity undertone that was like playing. It's like a tune playing in the other room, and it's like setting that frequency and that chakra of like,
what's the past time information?
Fear of scarcity, fear of like not fear of lack. And
then you bring that back in,
right? And then it comes back in. You're like, it validates that.
Yeah,
that
the body keeps the score.
Oh, yeah.
And so the body's like, oh my gosh, not again.
Right. Like, oh, I know this feels familiar. Like, I know, like this can happen again. But I think once you clean that out, and I think something shifted dramatically this past year for me, of like, I think I put a lot of trust in the universe when I was in between jobs this past fall. And like, I think that validated, like, you know, it's going to be okay. Like, you have the power to get the resources you need to get yourself in a place of feeling secure and stable and in your body and grounded. And I think that trust is a muscle in itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like working out.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, work out that muscle. And there's also this feeling of safety or feeling unsafe when your root chakra, it's out of balance. I remember that when I also was in the space of lack and scarcity, I was like, anxiety person.
Oh, yeah.
I was always super anxious. And but for me, my anxiety was so chronic, and I've been anxious pretty much, my gosh, this my whole life until now.
Right.
And it's still there. I'm not gonna lie. I do go through like, this phases of anxiety, but I think nowadays I'm way better at managing my anxiety levels. But mine was so bad that I escalated to panic attack.
Yeah.
And that's awful. Like, I don't wish that to anyone. It was such a horrible place to be. And I felt so out of control.
Right.
And I felt unsafe.
Right.
You feel unsafe, fear and unsafe in your own body.
Yeah.
And that was awful. And then people ask, well, how did you get over it? I don't think you get over it. Just learn how, again, just like to manage.
Yeah.
And like,
it's almost like integrate.
Yeah. Process.
Yeah.
You have to process all of that. And for me, it was, through meditation and just going through the meditation psychic training that we've gone through. But it was just that first step of acknowledging
that this is a habit or a pattern.
Yeah, this is something that I need to really, and we talked about this episode on accountability.
Yeah.
It was just holding myself accountable. Okay, this is the issue. I need to make a change.
Right. Right. And it's okay, like, if you don't know how or what you need to do next. But I think being able to like take ownership that I have these limiting beliefs, and like also recognizing like what even is a limiting belief. And like for me, the limiting belief was like feeling like I didn't have enough. And like I didn't grow up with a wealthy family. I grew up with parents who made ends meet, and that was, paycheck to paycheck living. And I think, they did the best they can. And even now they're in a better financial space, which is awesome to see. And like, maybe it's because we've left the nest and they don't have to pay for us, or they've inherited money, and, situations happen that bring in abundance. But I also think like, since I've done the training, I've been able to call out the scarcity familial patterns in my, specifically in my masculine, like the what am I like my father's lineage, the paternal. That's what I'm thinking. The paternal lineage, and realizing like that. It doesn't just come from my dad; it comes from his dad, and like
it's a generational pattern.
Generation trauma.
It gets passed on, and then it's up to us to become aware, of those traumas or patterns and just release it,
And it's not even like blaming your ancestors for like thinking this way, but it's like if you think about the Great Depression, like there weren't enough resources for most folks in the US during like the 1930s. And I think a lot of that generational trauma, a lot of people are processing that now, who are doing the work to like heal and like rewire your thinking and your patterns and your mental patterns and your narratives about, what is abundance, like, or even feeling deserving of having more than just enough. I think that is the shift that we are all feeling. Like, yes, we live in the Bay Area. Yes, there's the tech boom. Yes, there's Gen Z's mindset. But like, and now Gen Alpha is like coming up, and like all these different ways of like questioning our own beliefs about how things need to be done and how things need to, be thought about. I think that's like such a great proactive approach that we're going to see. I think that's the trends I'm predicting. We are a little psychic here. So
yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
Not to want to like toot our own horn, but beep, beep.
Beep, beep. Yeah. But
yeah, well, I see that we've shifted a lot of this old mentality and paradigm that's been like running pretty much through our whole history, is that there's only this limited amount of resources, and it's only limited to this group of people. And people like us, that we're becoming more and more aware of this is not true.
Right. Like that's all made up too. Like they made that up.
Yeah.
I don't know who gave them that information, but.
And it's like, no,
yeah,
this is not right. So we're going to really question all of this. I come from like a family that has been through World War II and literally had to escape war and immigrate as refugees to another country for me to be here today. So my whole history is based on trauma.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Trauma and all these emotional wounds. And in my family, we never talked about any of this.
Interesting.
And we don't talk about it.
Right.
Because it's not something that it's openly discussed. And I don't even think that even if I would talk like to my mom, that she has the emotional capacity to express herself regarding this or recognize that this is an issue.
Right, right.
So for me, it was like a big shift just to like become aware of all this pattern and what was the limiting narratives and beliefs that I had around it being fulfilling my needs in this physical plane, and that I was worthy of fulfilling those needs as well, and that my needs were valid.
Yeah, and like it's possible to fulfill your own needs.
Yeah.
And get the resources you need.
Absolutely. And then my needs mattered and not all the other people's.
Right.
That I could still be empathetic to other people's needs, but I also needed to tend to my own basic needs.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it was housing or was financial and all those different levels, but also it was a big shift when I really like decided to like just stand up for myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm going to take responsibility for this.
I love that.
And I want to shift this because I am tired.
Yeah.
You just like get so tired of being in survival mode. And it's interesting if you look at the world right now, the world runs a lot in survival energy.
Yeah.
If you look at it. And it's, if you probably feel it or, you look at your daily life, it's, my gosh, like it's exhausting.
Yeah. Especially in like a capitalist society that we're in, like in the US, like where, helping people, it can feel like a chore. I personally am an acts of service person. Like that's one of my love languages. I am in a role where my whole point of my role is to serve the executives I support. So when I think about like the concept of helping other people and serving other people, I do have to check in with myself and be like, am I in a space energetically where I can do that? And like some days are better than others, like where I'm like, I literally like today, like my executive had eaten in a conference room and I was like, oh, can I take your plate? Easy, put it in the kitchen. And she's like, yes, but I feel weird about you doing that. And I'm like, no, like, please don't. Like, like, it's like, even people who have tons of resources might not feel comfortable with like having people like help others and like serve them. But like bringing it back to like that survival pattern, I think when you have become so, like, for me, I'm very hyper independent and like, I'm realizing like, oh, that's impacting my heart space and like my emotional space.
Well, yeah, it affects everything in your life if you think about it.
Yeah. And like, I would pride myself on become like a badge of honor, like, oh, I'm super independent. Like, I don't need to rely on other people. But like, then that like leaves like a lack in other chakras that I'm starting to recognize.
Yeah. Well, if one chakra is imbalanced, it will affect all other chakras. So another thing that it's also connected to the first chakra or the root chakra is the sense of stability and foundation. And I know that for a lot of people, this is something that's maybe they didn't grow up with, or they come from households where,
like a chaotic,
very
home
chaotic.
environment.
Yeah, it was very unstable. And therefore, then when they go out in the world, that's all they know.
So they're comfortable with it. So they keep attracting that type of chaotic environment.
More and more. So whatever it's outside of that, it's not unfamiliar.
Right. Or like stability isn't fun, or it's
boring.
It's boring. Like I'm missing like something. I grew up in like an emotionally stable home environment. You know, the finances, as I've said in a few episodes, like I wish there had been more, you know, because I am a bougie, you know, I'm a bougie gal. I like to do the finer things in life. And
don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all? And, you know, but recognizing that when you're 5 years old and then not being able to get a job at 5, like, I think like wanting to, so that I can like fulfill those needs, but then not knowing how. I think for a long time, I was just waiting to start my life. But then that I'm realizing now after reading Nicole LePera's How to Do the Work, where it talks about like the roles that the child plays in like the dynamics in the home life and like what type of parent trauma you might have experienced. I realized like, oh, wow, like I do have some trauma to unpack that I also like was a learned behavior in the moment as like a way to survive.
Yeah, it's your coping mechanism.
Yes, that's the word. Yeah, thank you. So like realizing like, oh, so now that I'm an adult, like I don't need to be hyper independent. You can be interdependent with someone. Like that concept is very new and very uncomfortable for me, but I need to figure out a way of like how to integrate this new concept of interdependence, because it's not codependence. You know, I'm honestly repulsed by codependence, yet I let people be codependent on me. And so being able to like shift that, like, okay, like let's shake out that codependent attachment to those folks who want to rely on me, because I am someone who like can be relied on and like likes to provide acts of service. But then I realized like, oh, that might have been a coping mechanism as well.
But then you're also allowing for people to depend on you for their own survival.
Right.
And therefore you become depleted if you think about it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like your own space and energy, it becomes someone else's. And then it takes away from your ability to fill up your own cup. And you can't, you know, serve others from an empty cup at all. So I think it's been like really enlightening. Definitely like read her book. You recommended it to me. I know you've read it.
Yeah. Oh, I've read it, and I gifted your sister.
Yeah, I'm reading that book.
Oh, you are? So you got passed on? That's amazing. I love it. Yeah. Well, I'll leave the information in the show notes. I enjoy her work and everything that she posts online too. I think it really resonates.
It's all connected. Yeah. And then it almost like, after reading it, I was like, oh, that's why I operate like that. That's why I think that way about myself. And it kind of it helped me release a lot of that, like that I've been holding on to, that I was like searching for just like a term, just to identify with it.
Just label it or give it a name.
Exactly. Yeah. And then as soon as I had that realization or that recognition, that soul recognition moment, I released like that charge of like feeling like for years, like almost like that victim energy of that situation. And I feel like that's shifted a lot out of my space. And then,
but it all, starts with awareness.
Exactly.
Or mindfulness.
Yeah.
For people that are new to this, just starts just like recognizing the pattern or the narrative. Or another question I ask people too, what do you complain the most about?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's where you start pointing out the patterns and behaviors in your life.
Yeah. What do you complain the most about?
Man, every day it changes. Like every day there's something that I complain about.
Right.
And then I was like, why am I complaining about this? And then I become judgmental.
Yeah.
Lately, it has been a lot about being anxious. So it comes down to this survival.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of the survival energy around it. Like, in my case, it has a lot to do with housing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Your home environment is so critical.
Yeah.
Any environment.
Yeah.
Homework.
Because it becomes your, that grounded space for you. And so that's what's been coming. I mean, I'm not going to go into a lot of details on it, but
You don't need to spill the tea. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll do it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll talk about it in future episodes.
In a few months or something.
But because that is unstable, therefore I feel anxious. I'm not going to say I am anxious because it's not what I am. I feel the anxiety. I actually feel it like you feel it like right in the lower, abdomen.
Yeah.
That's exactly where the first chakra is. So this is a great example, actually. And then I complain about it, saying, oh, I feel anxious. Why do I feel anxious? And I just start go on and on about it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a great opportunity just to sit down and just reconnect with myself and ground myself.
Yeah. I match on the anxiety from past work environments specifically. Like, I am so used to chaotic, turbulent, like, everything's on fire. We got to get it done. And we got to get it done yesterday. Like that kind of like chaotic buzz of a startup, where like this new startup I work in, polar opposite. People roll in at a really normal time. They roll out.
So it's not chaotic.
It's not chaotic. They have families. They integrate their life and they integrate work into their life. It all stems from the top, right? Like, my CEO is very grounded. He's a Virgo. We haven't talked about it, but he's I don't know him that well. He doesn't know me like that, but we do have an astrology section on our TV streaming app. And I love working there. Like, I've never felt more safe in a work environment. And like, I've always felt like safe, like representing who I am and my personal interests. Like, I've never felt like I get swept up in the herd. I feel like, if anything, like I'm, represent my uniqueness in the workplace. And I always have, even in a chaotic environment. But I've always like dealt with it. But the coping mechanism was like, oh, as long as I'm the eye of the storm and not in the swirl of the hurricane. But there was always a hurricane around me. Now it's just like easy breezy. I'm just sitting on the shore of like a beach and enjoying like a cocktail. Like, it's, things are getting done. No one is running around like a chicken with their head cut off. And like,
that's a big shift.
It's a huge shift.
If you look at it, it's kind of going from like 100 to 0.
Yes.
It's going the opposite way.
It's going the opposite way. And I'm like, I think this is the secret of work. Like, I think he's onto something. Like, and I don't even think he realizes like how he does set the tone in like a very healthy way.
Yeah, well, that's great.
I know. I'm like,
I wish we could all like work with people like that.
Right? Yeah.
People, and you will notice when you meet someone that is just like so grounded in themselves, you feel a sense of safety.
Yeah, you do.
Around that person. You feel comfortable with them because that's the energy.
Right. Like,
that they're in. You don't feel like you have to be anyone else but yourself.
Right.
When you're next to someone like that. It's just so grounded. So probably someone that has their first chakra well balanced.
Absolutely. I mean, no, that makes sense. I mean, he does have a lot of resources because, he was a founder at a very, very, very successful startup. So I think like, when you are leading and setting the tone for an organization or a workplace in that environment, like, it does help to have your ducks in order survival wise and in your first chakra. So that makes sense. He's an earth sign. Earth signs are always structured. They're always grounded.
Well, because it's earth.
It's earth.
Earth is grounding.
Yeah.
But you can create also for yourself a space where you can feel grounded.
Totally.
Too. For a lot of people, it might be walking barefooted or gardening, or kind of even like put your hands like in the dirt.
Doing something that connects with your body.
Creating this connection with the physical body. Could be some sort of like movement or exercise, however your body feels good about it. I think the more connected you feel, the safer you feel in your body.
Yeah.
And therefore you're not firing up like all this like survival,
Right.
scarcity energy in your body, because once that energy starts getting spilled all over your space, then it just goes downhill from that.
Oh, yeah.
So try to create a space for yourself where you can create this grounding,
Yeah. Like what?
energetic space. It doesn't have to be, anything fancy.
No. And you can brainstorm if you're a journaler, if you're like a brainstormer on a whiteboard. Like, what does stability and security look like for you?
Yeah. Well, look at nature. Just go out for a walk in nature and just look how nature is so grounded.
Stillness.
Yeah, the stillness, it's grounding and it's present. So that's kind of a way to also bring a little bit more balance into the first chakra too. But I would be curious to hear, do you feel like your first chakra is dictating your life? Do you feel triggered around, like, especially around the lower abdominal area?
Yeah.
Do you feel any of those symptoms that we've described here? We would love to hear your stories. And if you have any comments, how do you balance your first chakra? And were you in any survival situations? How did you shift that energy? I would love to hear more about it. So please feel free to comment, send us a message. We're also on social media if you want to connect. But if you enjoyed this episode, share with your friends. It helps us to spread the message to more people and create even a bigger community too. So thank you so much for co-creating the space and sharing your energy and your time with us. And we'll see you on our next episode.
Thank you so much from the Psychic Girls Next Door.